Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Molly. So it's a cool rainy day here in Washington, so I thought that I would make something kind of warmish for dinner. I found this cookbook online. It's called the Fireless Cook Book. It was written by Margaret J. And I think it was written around or published around 1909. So I was looking through this and I saw a couple recipes that looked interesting. One that caught my eye, and I think we're going to do, is an Irish stew. And above the Irish stew recipe was a beef stew with dumplings. So what I think I want to do is I want to make the Irish stew, but I'm going to use the dumpling recipe from the beef stew and give that a shot. It's kind of a good day for it. It's a pretty basic recipe. What you need is some beef, potatoes, turnip, carrot, onion, celery, salt, pepper, flour, and it says rendered fat. I don't have rendered fat. I have avocado oil. That's what I'm going to use. So it's been raining, like I mentioned, it's been raining off and on here. It's going from periods of the sun will suddenly come out and it warms up. It feels like 10 degrees. Then the next minute it'll be just downpouring. So I don't know if the microphone is going to pick up the heavy rain, but if you hear it, that's what's going on. It's, June in Washington and it's pouring rain, which is to be expected. Anyways, so for this recipe, we'll need, it says to wash and cut about 2 pounds of beef. And it says from the leg, brisket, or other cheap cuts into 1 inch cube and 1 inch pieces. And that's what I've done here. Mine are probably bigger than 1 inch, but it'll be all right. And so what I need to do next is I need to peel the potatoes, the turnip, and the carrot, and then slice them up, and then slice up the onion and celery. So I'm going to get going on that. This is the worst peeler ever. It sucks. I wanted to say one thing about the measurements in this book. This book was written in 1909. I have no idea if the measurements that they say here, like they say 3 cups of meat. I don't know if 3 cups of meat then would be the same as 3 cups of meat now. I looked through the book briefly. It's like 300 or 400 pages long. I didn't see anything that talked about in more specific detail what their unit of measurements were or what they should equate to. So I'm just going to go off of the assumption that 1 cup then is the same as 1 cup now. This book was published in New York, so US units. I don't think for a stew it's really going to make that much of a difference. I don't think it's really going to matter. So we're not baking a cake here. I'll give you guys the recipe in the description box. So just know that I don't know. I don't know if it's changed. But we'll see if it works out and we'll see what it tastes like. So I've got my turnip, my carrot, and my potatoes peeled, and I'm going to cut them up. And we don't need very much. We just need 2 cups of potato, half a cup of turnip, and a half a cup of carrots. We need a 1/3 cup of onion, a half cup of celery. So we'll see. Let's get cutting. And it also doesn't say, don't laugh at my cutting skills. I never said I was a professional chef. It also doesn't say like how everything should be cut. So like, cut it into, it does for the beef, but it doesn't say for the vegetables, like how they should be, what size the pieces are that they should be cut into. So we're just gonna, with these old recipes, sometimes you just have to use your best judgment. And it'll be okay. It'll turn out just fine. It should. It should turn out fine. You guys can't see him, but my cat, Tully, is in a very wild mood right now. So he knows I'm in the process of making food, so he's hanging around. Tully. Another thing you guys might hear are my chickens. One of them's being particularly noisy right now. I think she's laying an egg. So if you hear a chicken, someone's laying an egg. So there you go. Okay, I've got my beef cut up, my vegetables cut up, We need to roll the meat in the flour and fry it until it is brown in the fat. Okay, let's go. I'm using a enamel coated cast iron Dutch oven. This is one of my favorite pans. And I'm just going to heat 4 tablespoons of avocado oil over medium-high heat. Okay. And then we'll get the beef in there once it's heated up. Right, so after my beef was browned, I went ahead and added the vegetables, salt, pepper, and 3 cups of water to the pot. And then I turned the heat down to about medium low. And I set my timer for 4 hours. Now the recipe says that it's to cook it for 5 hours. However, we're going to put the dumplings on this. And so I wanted to stop it at 4 so I could get that dumpling dough ready and get them put onto the stew. When you floured your beef, you should have had some excess flour left over. Don't toss the flour, hang on to it. We're going to be using it later on. Hey everyone, I'm back.
Hello.
The stew's been simmering away and I've got Dan here to help me make the dumplings. So to get started on that, we need 2 cups of flour. I'm going to tell you. And make sure I got this right. So it's 2 cups of flour in the bowl. Add half a teaspoon of salt. Oh, could you run out and grab the baking powder?
We got the baking powder.
4 teaspoons. In it goes. That's low. It's going to be fluffy.
How many is that?
4 teaspoons.
Oh.
You see that bounce off? Okay, so we whisk it up. And then what we want to do is we're going to cut in 2 tablespoons of butter. We're going to cut it in with the pastry cutter. Do you want to do the honors?
Sure.
Okay. So Dan's cutting in the butter. And when he's done with that, we're going to add 3/4 cup water up to 1 cup water. We're going to add enough water to make a stiff dough. And then we're going to drop it by the tablespoon on top of the stew. The recipe says the dumplings should rest on the meat and vegetables as they will not be so light if submerged in the gravy. Okay, so we need a spoon.
Water.
Yeah, so don't add all of it. Just add like 3/4 of it. It's the short spoon. We added, show them to the camera. We added almost the entire amount of water. I'd say that's a stiff dough.
Yeah.
So Dan's adding the dumplings. The dumplings on. And now time to cover. And so the recipe does not specify how long you cook these for. I have cooked dumplings before that were leavened with baking powder. So Daniel, could you please set the timer for, let's just say 15 minutes. We'll check it at 15 minutes. I've got it still over low heat. It's pretty hot, so I think they'll cook just fine.
Oh wow. Those fluffed up good.
Our stew and dumplings are done. And I went ahead and took the liberty of sprinkling some parsley on top because we're extra. Anyways, let's taste this. They're very fluffy. That's upon first impression of the dumplings is that they rose quite a bit. They're very fluffy.
Yeah, I was really surprised that little dumplings took up the whole top.
Yes. It is surprising. I'm just trying to get like a piece of carrot. It didn't happen. There you go.
Thanks.
All right, let's see how it tastes. It smells delicious.
I'm going after the dumplings first. That dumpling is delicious.
Is it good? Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It is very good.
It's nice and moist and
The beef is
on the
tender.
inside. And what did you use for the stew meat?
Beef.
Yeah, but what cut?
Chuck roast. Sorry, I should have said I used a chuck roast. It's very tender.
Yeah.
It needs more seasoning.
Yeah, you know, but like a lot of these older recipes, they don't really use a whole lot of seasoning because I don't think there is really all that much seasoning readily available.
Well, see, that's what I wonder. I'm like, why were they so stingy on the seasoning? That's
Well-
it keeps happening. I'm like,
Unless it's nutmeg.
that's right, nutmeg. It's very delicious.
It's really good. The meat's delicious.
Honestly, well, there was a lot of vegetables in here in the beginning. I got a piece of celery that was still crunchy. I don't know how that happened. Because I mean, literally, it's been cooking for a couple hours. Yeah, oh, you know what I totally forgot to do? I completely forgot to add the remaining flour to the stew. I was supposed to mix the remaining flour with water and add it to the stew, and I did not do that. But you know what? I don't think you really need to do it because the potato breaks down, and that helps thicken it because obviously it's got starch. So that thickens the stew. And additionally, with the addition of the dumplings on top, I think that also helped to thicken it because it's definitely a stew. It's not soupy at all. If you don't do the dumplings, I'd say add the extra flour, follow the recipe, but I totally forgot. And I think it turned out just fine. It just
it's good.
needs a little more seasoning, but this is a good basic recipe.
Anybody can make this at home.
Wow. See? Anybody.
Even I could do it.
Yep, you could.
That's saying a lot.
Irish stew. Not sure how authentic it is. Seems to me like an Irish stew would be made maybe with mutton.
Yeah.
But Americans substitute beef for a lot of things. So I don't know if a traditional Irish stew would be made with beef. If anybody out there happens to know, please chime in because I'm actually very curious. What is a traditional Irish stew made with? Is it actually made with beef?
If you guys have any recipes, any vintage recipes that you would like Molly to try, feel free to leave a comment below.
I'll make anything, almost anything. I won't eat brains.
Or eyes.
Or eyes. No brains or eyes. But I'll eat any other organ. I don't know if I'm going to keep
Cut that part out.
What am I talking about? Irish stew. Delicious. We highly recommend.
Recipe of the week.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Look at this little tiny egg. I left you one. Thank you for the eggs. They're filthy. They're gonna need good scrubbing. Thank you. We can all hear you guys. You're very loud, but your work is very much appreciated.